Alrighty, welcome back to the stream. Welcome back once again to BlockBall, where we're going to be making this game, and thankfully I've finished most of the annoying work I needed to take care of with this. So, let's close this down for a second. Let me move this over to the testing room. Alright, so before we get started, as usual, music is from the StreamBeats playlists. This is the ambient playlist you are currently listening to. This is a really nice one to listen to while doing this sort of work, thankfully. It fits really nicely in with everything that's going on. It's very chill. It's just nice. Alright, anyway. So, I've done a couple things since last I streamed. Last time I was basically trying to get my head wrapped around how to get the controller stuff properly working with the game, and I have done so. So let me actually show this off. In the testing room, I now have two objects. I've got my regular control master, which is the same one that's in the normal game, and then I created this new object called the controller utility. All that is basically I took a bunch of the stuff that was in the controller master for like testing and displaying information and all that stuff, just pulled it out, put it into its new thing, and stuck it specifically in the test room so that I wouldn't have to deal with like, okay, so I've got all this like debug information effectively sitting around on the main game screen. That's not looking great. Do I need that? No. But if I put it here, then I have the information at will. I can mess around with this all I want without having to worry about the master control object actually breaking. And master control object I can test out as I see fit. So, let's pop into the test room here real quick. So, let's talk through this information first here. So, first off, at the very top there, you see there's this little mapping, no mapping thing. That's something I've been working on off-screen-ish, just to sort of figure out how to get different parts of the game working properly. Player 1 and Player 2 and GP0 and GP1 information, same as before. Basically just, you know, Player 1 has taken input whatever. The Gamepad plugged into slot 0 is this one. Gamepad plugged into slot 1 is that slot. And then you have vertical axis and horizontal axis for both thumbsticks. Now, let me plug in a controller here. This stuff better. Let's talk a little bit. Hold on a second. I'll find the right cable for this, otherwise I can plug it in. Yeah. I really need to do a reorganization of my little, like, it's not even a container, it's just a table that I have sitting over here that has a bunch of stuff on it. Anyway, so I'm plugging in my, I'm currently plugging in my PlayStation controller, PlayStation 4 controller, because a lot of the work I was doing on this was getting direct input controllers working properly, because that's where all the trouble lies. Xbox controllers work perfectly fine. Direct input has issues. Right. So, a couple things changed. First, obviously, I don't have the input set. I can do that right now. There you go. So, player 1 is now input 4, which is my PlayStation 4 controller. Player 2 is input 99. By the way, I fixed that as well. I'll go through those changes later. GP slot 0, which is the only controller plugged in right now, is slot 4, which is the PlayStation 4 controller. Vertical axis on the gamepad is working properly, as is horizontal axis. Vertical axis is working properly there. And you'll notice here you've got something called a GUID. So the GUID, as near as I can tell, because I can't really find any specific information, seems to be a ID string specifically tied to a particular kind of controller. So as an example, this is the Sony DualShock 4 controller. It's 4C05CC whatever. Unplug that. Plug in my Stadia controller. Plug in my Stadia controller here. Stadia controller has a different GUID and actually says Stadia controller there, which is pretty cool. Now unplug that one. I'm going to plug in my PS5 controller. You see right there. Wireless controller, and it has a different string. Now, here's the problem. You'll notice with the Stadia and the PlayStation 5 controller, there is no mapping at the top, right? Let me explain what the problem there is. I'm going to press the X button. See, it says button pressed 1. I'm pressing square button. I'm pressing triangle. I'm pressing circle. I'm going to press right trigger. I'm going to press left trigger. Hey, that's weird. Look at that. The right vertical axis on the thumbstick is actually being read as the left trigger. I'm going to press the D-pad. Hat buttons have been pressed, okay. Okay, that's axis 1, axis 0, 5, 2. All these buttons are being mapped out to different things. So basically the problem here is, because there's no mapping, this controller is actually set up in a completely unintuitive format. Where it's, amongst other things, a lot of the buttons are completely being read in, like, the wrong place compared to what a normal Xbox controller would be doing, which is what the thing is sort of standardized to. That's why when you press, like, 0, button 0 should be the X button, but instead it's the square button. So if I had a game that was asking me to press the A button or the X button, it would actually be reading square. If I push this, it would be reading circle, even though I'm pressing the X button. If I push this button, that'd be reading circle, or square, even though I'm pressing circle. And this one is triangle, which I think is the only one that's correct. If I push... See, that's 4. 4 is left bumper, left trigger, right trigger... Select start, left stick, right stick, gamepad, let's see, 12, button 12 is the PlayStation button in the middle of the controller, 13 is the touchpad, 14 is the mic mute button. And the problem I was having was when I tried putting this in the game to, like, control control the game, right? Control one of the paddles. In order to move up and down, I would have to use left trigger and the PlayStation button to move the paddle up and down instead of left analog stick, or rather instead of, I think it was, I'm pretty sure it was instead of up and down on the D-pad, because that's what they were bound to. It was awful. Similarly, the Stadia controller doesn't work properly because the controller has slightly more buttons than a normal controller. It's got like the normal face buttons, shoulders, and then it also has 4 middle buttons and the guide, like Stadia button. Anyway, the basic gist is that, oh right, let me show this one off. The basic gist is that controllers don't, anything that isn't an Xbox controller, you need to get a weird binding set up, which I've been able to do. Hold on a second, let me get this. You want to know the real fun one? Here, let me show you this. I'm plugging in my Nintendo Switch controller. There you go, Nintendo Switch controller. Now, here's the interesting part here. You'll notice that the button says there's 23 buttons, there's 4 axes, there's 1 hat. Ignore where it says axis 6. That was something I was doing specifically for testing purposes with the PlayStation 5 controller. I probably should get rid of that. So you notice it says 23 buttons, 4 axes. Axes are up and down on left stick, left to right on the stick, up and down on the right stick, right, left on the horizontal right stick. You've got buttons all over. And hats. Hats are effectively the D-pad. In this case, though, the hat is not functional. The hat is not reading what is supposed to be the hat. Okay? But also, you'll notice that there's like 15 buttons here. The controller itself only has 17 buttons on it. Like, I've looked at it, I've looked at diagrams, I've counted them up. There are only 17 buttons on the Nintendo Switch Pro controller. I don't know where the other, like, 5 of them are coming from. Nintendo Switch Pro controller lists, like, 5 ghost buttons that I do not know what they're referring to. Maybe there's some kind of weird internal thing used for, like, scanning amiibos or something? I have no clue. Like, if you count up other controller buttons, doesn't come out right. Also, how does this blue thing stop working? Ah, God, that's right. It's also, for some reason, this controller specifically is taking in Steam controller input. PlayStation 5 controller isn't doing it, but for some reason, this one is. Alright. Also, now I gotta turn off this controller, which is its own problem, because this little blue light just... you know what? It'll probably turn off by itself. I like the Nintendo Switch controller way more in terms of holding it. It's just like, it's not as... The PlayStation controller is too, it's got too much texture to it. Switch controller is, much more comfortable. Anyway. Just getting the, Microsoft Xbox Gamepad. That works fine normally. So, after doing all this stuff with this testing utility and whatnot, I've discovered that there are things called mappings in the game. And we can go here. I've got some controller mappings listed out. So what you're able to do is you're able to use this function here, Gamepad Test Mapping, and actually write out the entirety of like every button input that's being recorded by the controller and output it as, you know, whatever the correct button it should be assigned to is. So, for example, the X button, which is left, the left button, X button on a Xbox gamepad, is set to when the controller is inputting button 0, and so on and so forth. These buttons here, buttons 12, 13, and 14, I can basically just ignore because they're the weird PlayStation-specific ones. And I'm also able to rebind the hats and the axes to be the correct axes that they're looking for, which is why, like, I don't have to worry about left trigger, right trigger. Although I probably should get rid of these two. Because of those two, they're actually being recorded as... with these two in here, they're actually being recorded as buttons, button presses, as opposed to axes. So maybe I should drop those two from the final string. So yeah, let me go here and just drop those ones. There we go. All right, so reopen up. Did I put that in utility? I think I did. Create, yeah. Yeah. So this is just in the sort of test thing I was doing where I was able to set this up to go, okay, this is the new mapping for the controller. The PlayStation 5 controller now has this particular mapping, which allows me to go, okay, so this button goes to that one, this one goes to that one, these two are controllers, and it basically rebinds everything to match an Xbox controller. And it works. Like here, I can run this right now, in fact. So before it said no mapping. Now when I run it, do this. PlayStation 5 controller is now plugged in, and check it. Wireless controller has 22 buttons. Currently the button pressed is... Yeah, these are buttons 17 and 18, which are also axis 4 and 5. Because there's 6 axes, but they start at 0. So 1 is left vertical, 0 is left horizontal, axis 3 is vertical axis on the right, 2 is there, 4 and 5 are also here. And it looks like, interestingly, so there's 22 buttons now, which includes the D-pad. 20, 19. So 17 and 18 now become the triggers, which is interesting. And 11. It's 15 or 16. Eighteen, 17, 19, 20, 19, 21, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 11. I don't know what button 16 is. I don't know what button 16 is recorded as. Very curious. Because this is the right... 1, 2, 3... 16, 17, 18, 19. I don't know what's going on there. What is that referring to? So it was up to 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Huh. Weird. So button 16 is just whatever. It's not there. It's very strange. Alright, anyway, that's just me kind of been talking about this and how controllers suck because they're not standardized in the least, which makes it really annoying to get anything working properly with them. So, that's just like a problem there. Okay, I can pull this off now. Now, what would I do with that in the end? There's two things I can do with that, now that I've set that up. First, I can set up a bunch of things that'll run on game start or whenever a controller is plugged in. So I'll go back to master controls, for example. I can go to the asynchronous thing here. And I can go, like, right here, just, if the gamepad is discovered, you run a thing here. This determines where the gamepad's actually located. Sign of arrow, GP slot pad, whatever. Oh, I had these thresholds already. I didn't even need to set them in the utility. Disable that now. Yeah, like I can do that, and then I can go here, and for example, I could set a bunch of cases right here, which I probably should do anyway. Should be like a switch. So I do right there, maybe probably a function call. So I do a function call here. Do, what is it? It's get GUID. Gamepad get GUID for value pad. Put that into, let's call it GUID. Put that in there, switch. Now switch, and that's going to be case. And you'd have a case of if the GUID is equal to, say, this one. That means it's a PlayStation 5 controller. And I put a little thing right here, which would just be a little code block that just has a note that says PS5 on, and that's it. That's all it would have to be. Just a little teeny block of code. It just says, this is a PS5 controller. And as a result of that, I can do another function call, which I'll actually just copy this one over. Just like that. Function gamepad test mapping. This would be pad. And if it's equal to a PS5 controller, it'll add this gamepad test mapping to that pad control slot, which will, you know, which will overwrite it, and I'll be able to have a functioning thing. The controller will be functional now. So actually, what I could do is I could, in fact, test that right now. Yeah, that's disabled. Good. Let's make sure that works. I'm not sure this needs to be in quotes. Yeah, it needs to be in quotes. So let's try that. Alright, now if I plug in the PlayStation 5 controller again, my USB port is going to die at the end of this. Okay, so if I plug in the PS5 controller, you should see the mapping pop up. Yeah! Look at that! Haha, it works! Perfect. So, I now natively support PlayStation 5 controllers, thanks to this little bit. This little bit of code right here means that I now natively support PlayStation 5 input. And if I wanted to, I could add a second case right here, which I will do, in fact. Add a second case here. This is why I've been writing these things down, by the way, because it makes it way easier when I'm actually trying to work with it. Because it's just like, oh, it's right there. Switch Pro is right there. PlayStation 5 is right there. And I can just go in and adjust things as necessary without having to worry too much about it. There we go. So code. Let's see. Call this Nintendo Switch Pro. There we go. And then just copy this over here. Add a function call. And instead of that argument, we are going to pull this one in. And voila, we now have the Nintendo Switch Pro controller added as a valid controller option. I just wanted to do this because I wanted to point out just how fucked up controller support is in this game, or in general. Just like, if it's not a Windows controller, you have to manually add everything yourself. And it's not hard, but boy is it annoying. Alright, so that takes care of that now. Ha ha ha, nice. So that's there. I should probably also talk about some of the other stuff I did. This can go away for the moment. So let's close everything but this. So, first create event. I got stuff here. This is all basically what I had before, I think. I got the player count value. Assign variables 1, I, and P. P loops. As long as P is less than the player count, then you create basically your control and input array to keep track of who's doing what. This should probably be reversed. I'm not entirely sure why that was above it. It should have been below it, because Control P has to start at P0. Anyway, there's that one. We got the for loop, which starts at I equals 0, goes to 11, increments by 1, which just creates your GP slot array. You have these variables, just basically clearing them back out and adding H&M, and then you have a key assign variable, which is what I use when I'm doing the key assign stuff. Okay, under step, we have this, which has allowed me to turn on the key assign stuff. Key assign turns on, assign variable P to 0, and assign the inputs for the two players to 0, or to null state, effectively. Okay, if the variable key assign is equal to 1, call user event 0, and then call user event 1. Draw GUI is just showing the thing if key assign is set to 1. So, go to user event 0. Runs assignment of controllers for players. Input P99 is reserved for keyboards. So that's just me going like, instead of trying to set it to 0 because there's a controller in 0, I just said, okay, you know what, just set it to 99. Nobody's going to have 99 controllers plugged in, I assume. So if P is less than the player count, for H is equal to 0. Oh yeah, this part was changed significantly. So this used to be a much larger thing with like a for loop that was looping around while breaking and all this stuff, and I had multiple if statements that broke out of the loop over here too. It's been slimmed down significantly. Now it's just if P is less than player count, H increments from 0 to 11. If the gamepad button is pressed, which is A button, GP slot H. For the gamepad slot, then you have input P is assigned to P, input H. So input P would be the player count, which has to increment starting at 0. And the gamepad slot is set to H, which assigns them to, you know, the player gets, I'm in this slot or whatever. If the down button is pressed, then input P for that player is set to 99. And then over here, if input P, like after this part, if input P is equal to -1, or is not equal to -1, which means an input has been successfully assigned, increment up the player count. Otherwise, assign variable P is 0, key assign is 0, which is if everybody has gone through everything. If P is equal to player count, then set P to 0, and key assigned to 0 because you're done. User event 1 is sanitation of inputs. So what sanitation of inputs is I don't know when exactly I started using this term, but basically the idea is there's going to be a lot of different potential inputs that are going on to go up and down for whatever you're doing. If you're doing if the player is using gamepad, they could be using up and down on the D-pad. They could be using vertical on the left stick. They could be using up and down on the keyboard. So I don't want to have to do a check for if up on keyboard, if up on D-pad, if up vertically on the left stick. I want this to just go, all this just boils down to the player has the up variable active or the player has the down variable active. That's what I want it to boil down to. So, M starts at 0, goes up to 2, increment +1. If the input for player, M, is equal to 99, then if key down for down on the keyboard, if down is pressed on the keyboard, you have this control variable for that player set to 1. If up is pressed on the keyboard, then the control variable for that player is set to -1. Because -1 is moving upwards because the origin point on the axis is top left corner, that's 0. This is positive, and this is positive. So +1 is down or to the right, -1 is to the left or up. And finally, I have this if expression here, which is very handy. If down or up is not currently pressed, then that variable is set to 0. Otherwise, if the input is not equal to -1, which means there is an input for that player. First, you get the gamepad axis, which goes into its own temporary variable right here. If the gamepad axis is not equal to 0, then your control variable is equal to the gamepad axis divided by the absolute value of the gamepad axis. And all that does is just give you 1 or -1. That's all it is. Because it could be 0.1, it could be -0.5, I don't know. But if I divide it by itself, which is always positive, then I get 1 or -1. Simple math. Alternatively, if the gamepad axis is not being used, that is to say it's 0, if the gamepad up, the D-pad button up is pressed, control variable is set to -1, and if the gamepad down is pressed, control variable is set to 0, and if neither of them are pressed, then control pad is set to, the game thing is set to 0. Now, you may also be like, okay, that's kind of weird. What's that variable about? Well, let me go back and explain that one too. Also, I do use Control P, right? Pretty sure I use Control P in there. Right? Is Control P a variable I don't use anymore? Oh, no, it's right here. That's why. Right. So I've actually modified things slightly here over in the game controls to help, like, work with the sanitation of inputs. Where before I was going, like, I had this thing where I had the gamepad up, gamepad down, gamepad up, gamepad down for each player. Now, instead, I have the paddle speed variable, which is here, which actually used to be on the paddle itself. The paddle object used to have the speed in here, but now it has this move variable, which is set to 0 by default, because that means the pad isn't moving normally. So, what it does is you have paddle speed here, you have the control master object that it calls, and I think control 0 is just spawning the game objects, yeah. So on step, it reaches into the paddles and goes, your paddle speed is equal to the paddle speed variable I have here times the control object like multiplier, which is either going to be 0, -1, or 1, and you pick specific ones per character. So paddle 1 for player 1 is control P0, and paddle 2 is control P1. Those are set into move variables on those specific paddles. Then, the instance variable here is set to move value because this is actually working in that paddle. When I set this thing, it's not like I'm setting the move value from this object into the paddle. It's the paddle's internal move value is being controlled by this object for whatever reason. So, set instance variable, move for each of those, which just moves those things around. And then you have all these user events that I called before. Basically, what that does is that completely sorts out the problem I had before, where if I go here, change this around. Like if you remember correctly, last time I was doing this, I had a problem where if I move up and down real quick, it would actually freeze it in place because the things would be, the two variables for up and down would effectively be locked in place and freeze it in position, which is completely solved now as a result of not having them in the same, like, instead of having two separate variables which can be at odds with each other, I just made one variable which just multiplied everything else. So, we got working controller support. Fully functional, 100% working controller support now. It is completely in there. And, this took multiple days of going across multiple things in multiple parts of the, like, GameMaker system. Just figuring out, like, all this information, but it finally worked, and I'm glad I didn't stream any of it, because, God, that was a lot of just nothing. Like, it was a lot of nothing. Now, I wouldn't say it's nothing, but it was a lot of, like, me looking at something just going, that doesn't work, what's going on? Trying to figure out what buttons are pushed to what and why it wasn't working or whatever. Anyway, yeah, point is, things are working now. I got full control. Full control. Alright, so now comes the question of what am I going to do today? Because I am rapidly approaching the end of, like, what I would say version 1.0 development cycle is for this. Like, if I go to my to-do list here, I've got a couple small things like getting a winner thing showing up whenever the game ends, or resolution size, which is actually important. Default settings, I think I basically have, but I just need to like implement properly. Controller support is now added. We now have controller support in the game. 4 controllers would be specific stuff for specific like scenarios where I go, okay, this is how many players I want to have in the game, but it's not going to be too much extra work compared to what I have. I just need to go like, okay, I just need to set it up properly so that it will, 1, determine how many controllers and how many people are plugged in and whatever. And 2, I've got to be able to... So I got to be able to, like, select how many players are going to be in there and also assign the controllers and also get something that will actually support 4 controllers. And it basically is just going to be a couple variables that are changing, but the things that they're interacting with are the problem. Anyway, AI is something that's worth checking out, I suppose, although it's be kind of like very simple, just follow the ball, basically. Oh, and then the wall collisions. That's going to be the big one. But first. The one I want to do the most, the one that's probably the most important to do, is getting... Gotta get settings set up for this. So what I wanted to do today, mostly, is figure out how to do custom bindings for controls. So let's open up my control object here again. So, for most of these things, everything that's going on here, effectively, is just running based on these particular checks. So, this thing runs a loop for player, whatever. If input m is equal to 99, then you do keyboard, up, down, whatever, and sets the variable to what have you. But I don't want to use keyboard check V down and keyboard check V up. What I want to do is have the ability for the player to go, I'm going to use up and down, or I'm going to use W and S, or I'm going to use whatever. They'll set what they want their up and down to be in the settings or whatever. So I've got to figure out how to do that. I mean, the easy way is just... The easy way would probably be, let's say, user event 3. All right, let's do this. Or no, not user event 3, user event 2. What am I doing? Okay, so user event 2. And we'll do something like... Okay, so we're going to go... For loop, m, blah, blah, blah. You know what? This is fine. Let's get rid of these ones for the time being. All right. Gonna do M is less than player count. Let me see if that works. Okay, so I'm just gonna go back here. Let's disable this for the time being. Let's see if this works. Okay, I'm gonna also move this back to test room just so I don't have any other things get in the way. Set. So one thing about this is, yeah, none of the information is going to come through because it is set to slot 4, which is specifically PlayStation and onwards, but, you know, it works. Okay. Okay, it doesn't seem to be breaking if I do this, so that's probably fine. Actually, you know what? Let's just do a double check that everything is working properly. So set that to 0. Seems to be working properly, which is good. Interesting that the Xbox guide button on this one actually doesn't do anything. Okay, and you know what? Let me also, just while I'm here, just get rid of Axis 6. Okay. So that seems to be working. That's good. That's good. So I can keep M less than the player count. What is this about? Hold on a second. Okay, so let's see here. Back to this. We're doing this. So right now, if input M is that... let's see. So I want to do... I want to do a... How do I do this? So it would probably be a new set of variables. It would be a new set of variables. Let's do P is less than player count. let's go, yeah, key down, P, like that. Yeah, key down PP is probably fine. And then, wait, no, wait, no, I want, key down and key up. So, for each player, they're now going to have a variable which is assigned to them, which says their key down button is this, their key up button is this. Which is... Okay, so I think that'll work. Okay, so... Key down, let's go, key... Key down PM. So if key down PM is that, then you set... Do I need to do this in a separate thing, even? I guess probably not, right? Yeah, no, I don't think I need to do this. Like, I need to set the binding for this. Yeah, that's something I need to do. Okay, wait, how do I set the keys? Okay, so user event 2 is still disabled, right? Good. Okay, so we're going to go into master control utility, and I'm going to add some things here. I'm just going to go... I want to draw a GUI. Where can I put this? Probably directly across from the inputs. So player 1 is input 1. So like directly across over here, just controller or keyboard stuff. Just gonna put that right there. And this is a keyboard input. Okay, so... Was any key? I don't remember. What was it? Okay, V key underscore any key. So let's just see what's going on with the keyboard normally. Oh, forgot to move that, right. Set it to X, I don't know, 500. Should get it enough out of the way. Alright, so current keyboard input is 1. That's not it at all. No, that's just representing any key is pressed. Like, anything is being pressed. Maybe it's keyboard... Okay, let me look at the keyboard options here. Keyboard check direct. What is that? Ah, keyboard key. Got it. There. So this returns 0 in every case, except when a button's being pressed. So these are just direct numerical inputs here. That. I wonder. Okay, I got a little, like... I'm not sure what the best way to describe it is. It's like a little, scroll wheel that changes if something's muted or not on my keyboard, and it's, I don't use this thing ever. That part of my keyboard is so dusty, it's basically caked on there, because that's where the media controls are. But it sits there. What's button 1? I'm curious. It's not the number keys. Tab is 9. Backspace is 8. 220. I don't even think I have that many buttons on this thing, do I? Space... Oh, what? 13 was the enter key on the right side of the numpad. I'm really curious. What is number 1? Number 9 is tab, and that's the lowest one I've seen, I think. It's not any of the letter keys. I wonder. But it's 81 like this. Shift is 16, control is 162, 164. I don't think I have that many keys on this keyboard. Or buttons in general. Yeah, whatever. Okay, so. This is good, though. This is good. Keyboard input is 0, and I do have direct numerical inputs that I can work with. So I should probably change that then. Instead of key down P, instead of assigning key down to 0, I should probably assign it to -1? Yeah, I probably should assign these to -1 because 0 is actually a value that gets returned. Okay, so key down and key up P get assigned on creation. Actually, you know what? You know what? You know what? Instead of that, let's change these. Let's change these so they are, in fact, V key up and V key down. So by default, when you start the thing, it is going to be up and down. You need to go in and specifically change things to be not that. So if key down, PM. I could probably just, like, not even use this, honestly. Yeah, so this is actually probably fine. I don't even think I need it bent too. So let's see. If key down... Key down PM. There we go. And then if expression, keyboard check. Okay, let's see if this works. Okay, well, I can't test it here. I gotta test it if it works in the real game. Huh. So it's working for player 2, but why isn't it working for player 1? That's weird. Oh, I see what happened. My headphones are only... I usually keep my headphones at 20, but the usual computer sounds are kept at 100. That's why. Okay, now, that's weird. Why was that doing that? Why was that happening? I do have a controller plugged in, so let's try... Up. Okay, that thing's working fine there. Ooh, I don't even need to do that, honestly. I can just rebind them in-game. So, let's do down, that. Weird. So specifically when player 1 is using the keyboard, it starts moving up. Why is that? Why is it specifically player 1? Did that work here if it was doing like... Okay, let me just... Okay, so let's disable those real quick. If key down... down. Key down, up. If expression... Let's try this, just to see if it changes anything, because that's very strange. Whoops. Okay, so that works. This works perfectly fine. This one doesn't have a problem. This one works perfectly fine. Now swapped it to Gamepad, and this is hard. This is hard to do. This is really hard to do, actually. Particularly, the hard part is that the controller is in my left hand, and the keyboard is being controlled by my right hand, so I have to do this backwards of what I think. Alright, so why was that happening, then? Very strange. So what was the problem here? It was constantly moving up is the problem, which means this one right here is the issue. So let's try doing this. Let's enable this. I want that's down. I want up. And if it's neither. So let's see what happens here. Now it's constantly moving down, which tells me that for some reason, okay, I bet I know what the problem is. I bet I know what the problem is. I bet what's happening is up and down aren't actually being translated as the values I'm looking for. Like, I bet if I output up and down right now, let's go back to the test room. Let's see, let's just put in a VK down. I bet if I do this right now. Yeah, it's not doing anything. It's just giving me the value for it, which is weird. So let me see here. If I do... Okay, I can also move these over a little bit. Probably like 600. Okay, so it's... Oh, I turned off numlock by accident. The keyboard input, let's call that okay, let's do that. Okay, now we're gonna do... Okay, so... set to 200. Alright, so we're gonna do... Let's see, I want to do if key... If key down, well, what are we calling this? I gotta pull it from controller thing, so inst master controls dot, what did I call it? It was... Key down P0, let's say. Actually, I probably want to do function call instead of an if. Okay, so I want to do a key. Keyboard check. Okay. Why is it returning 0 regardless? So it's only returning. It's returning 1 as long as nothing is in. Try that. Doing a check pressed instead. Yeah, so it only does it for the first frame that you press it. Check direct? Yeah, might as well. Try that. Keyboard check direct. What's this gonna do? It does not work, is what it does. It doesn't do anything. See, I wonder. Zero. That's not correct, though. It shouldn't be 0. Key down P is not 0. VK down should be 40. Okay, you know what? Also, let me check something here. I'm just gonna set this to 40 for a second. Just for a second, I'm gonna set this to 40 instead. And we're gonna see if this works. I probably should have changed that button around. Why is it still 0? It should be... what? Oh god, I'm an idiot. That's why. That's why. I'm a dumb idiot. You know what? I'm just gonna do this. Just to save myself the headache. There. Increment ups afterwards. And now... there you go. Look at that. Ha ha ha. It worked. Okay, so now we do this, and then... keyboard check. There you go. Now it works. That was the problem. I guess the lesson here is always make sure you have your incrementation set up after, like, all the other variables that are supposed to be done, just so that never happens. Anyway, with that set, should now be able to go back to the main menu. There we go. Start game. Look at that, they're both moving. Haha, yes. Perfect. Excellent. Alright, now, let's see here. What can we do? What can we do with this? Okay, so now that that's set, we have the ability to basically, at will, assign whatever we want to whichever player. I could set player 1 to be down and up, or I could set player 2 to be W and S, or whatever I want, right? Yeah, I could set these things to do whatever I want now. I can do whatever I want. Now, how do I implement this is the question. Oh god, how would I even do this? How would I implement this? What would be the best way to do it? Like, I just straight up don't know what the best way to do this would be. Best way to do this would be like... Okay, so let me go back to regular main menu here, right? Looking at this main menu, there is a lot of empty space. I could put stuff here, I could put stuff here, I could put stuff here, I could put stuff here. So what I could do is I could do something like just over here. So actually, one thing I did want to do, while I'm remembering, is... Let me just get paint available here so you can see that. There we go. So one thing I did want to do with this, because I think it would be like really cool, is when you're looking at the menu, like let me actually go back to the settings menu here. So when you're looking at the settings menu, you got the settings, you know, sitting like that. What I was thinking is, if you had a setting which was, or rather first, let's say you got your setting option here, right? You got, I don't know, sound effects. I don't know how you do this in multiplayer, but sound effects are there. Each player has a specific selector icon. So like player 1's would look like this, and it would see like P1 over here. Player 2 would have one over here. Player 3 would have one over here. Player 4 would have one over here. So you have these little tab things that would just move over it. So if player 1 had this selected, for example, it would look like this. Player 1. And that would be able to do stuff like turn vibration on and off, change bindings, do some other, you know, control things. And then if player 2 also selected it, their tab would also show up here, and you'd be like, okay, player 2 is also on that. So it's actually visible. You can actually see who's where. That's my thought. Just like basic, very basic thought. Now, as for actually selecting any of this stuff, I don't know. I don't know. One thing I do want to do also is eventually change this so instead of being on or off by doing this, it's a little box that you actually select, which, you know, it's not really relevant for multiplayer, but in this instance it would be handy. And if I did that, I could go to a binding button over here, which would be like bind up, down, left, right, X, whatever. But for now, I think what I should do is I should probably add, like, start game. Instead of immediately jumping into the game, it should probably pop up with, like, a little menu that says how many players or what have you. But even earlier than that, let's figure out how I can even bind these things first. So, really quick, I'm gonna go here for a second, because I want to go to main menu. Let's go to horizontal align left. See how that looks. Yeah, that's a little bit better. Okay. I'm gonna set the text to. Can I change text? Did I set it here? I don't think I did. Yeah, I didn't. Okay. So let's go down to this then. Can get rid of this too, I think. Because those are all those offsets were made using the centered stuff, so I don't want those there. Let's change this to nice white so it's easier to read. Okay, I want. What the hell is this? Show debug message. Oh yeah, right. I want. There we go. It's a text alignment. It's a draw color. That's probably fine. Yeah, it's a little hard to look at, perhaps, but it works. Especially for this part here. Okay, so what I could do... Let me see here. If I go to... Go to here... Oh, that's awkward. Let's re-enable all this stuff real quick. I'm gonna just disable this and make sure that it works properly. Don't want it to break. Yep, it works. Excellent. Okay, so I can delete this. Also, thanks to that, I could theoretically do the exact same thing with this. Yeah, I could theoretically do the same thing with this, because if I really wanted to, I could set, like, the button to be a genericized version instead of up and down. I could set it to be gamepad input P, or is, if gamepad pad down. Because all the gamepad buttons are numbers, I could theoretically do that, since I did reassign all the numbers to effectively be standardized. So if gamepad button down 0 would be, I think, X. Like if I wanted to do that, it would be 2 and 4, which would be A and Y on a normal Xbox controller, and I could set those to do that. So that's theoretically possible, but I don't know if I want to do that yet. I still need to figure out how I'm going to actually do this. I may be reaching the point where it's less like programming features and more just refining and like not necessarily like tidying things up, I guess. Not code cleanup, but like just general sort of make it nicer looking. Oh, and one thing I should probably do is let's go to the create. No, I want to go to step. I gotta change this one. So instead of pressing R, we're gonna press P. Actually, no. Set it to K. I'm gonna set it to K. K for keybinds. Just because R is the respawn ball button, and I don't want that. I don't want it in the middle of the game when I'm trying to test control stuff. Like I'm here, right? Nothing's currently bound or anything at all. I press R and that respawns the ball, and I don't have to press that and respawn the ball every single time. Just like that. Alright. God, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. It really feels like this is the point of the game where I'd actually start like going through and reformatting how I set up all the menus so I can properly work on them. Like, just as an example, the settings menu is very, very much incomplete. Like, I would probably spend some time going like, okay, what do I want the settings menu to actually look like? And then start working on that. I guess the one thing I should probably do before I do that, though, is resolution stuff. So, man, I just don't know. I'm like in a weird spot because I did a lot of this work off screen, which is the lion's share of what I had to do, which is good because it was a lot of nonsense that was not very fun to watch. It's just like I'm a little stymied now. Okay, so let me just take a look. So we've got okay, so anyway, the important thing here is the basics of how do I assign this stuff to this player is now set. Okay, so what I would actually do here is first, let's take a look here, right? We're going through this step. We have the key assigned stuff, which is going to be in user event 0. So if we have a loop here, if he is less than player count, if blah blah, gamepad button pressed, if key pressed, if VK down is pressed, the input is set to 99. And then after that point, it does this thing. So, what I could do is let me think, would that work? Yeah, it should work theoretically, because even if they push the controller button, it'll just like stop it. What I could theoretically do is I'm trying to think. I'm supposed to describe this. One thing I could theoretically do is I could Okay, press A or down key. So let's say they press S to be down key, right? So if key pressed any key, I would get that key's value, input it as a player P key down whatever, and then do keyboard. Okay, let me go to draw GUI real quick. So if, let's stay this, and let's create a new variable here. Let's do key assign is 0, and keyboard assign is 0. So if key assign is equal to 1, then do this, and then if keyboard assign is equal to 1, then draw transform value. Press the up key for P. There you go. Okay, now I want to create temporary variables too. Okay, so I'm going to create 2 temporary variables as well, just on create event. I don't even need to do that for this. I can just make them here. Temp key up and temp key down. A lot of nonsense here. A lot of nonsense. Is there a temporary... Declare temp. Yeah, okay. I don't... The problem is I don't actually know, like, how long a temporary variable lasts for. Because I know it only lasts within the space of, like, an event or something. But does that mean that when this thing loops through, because it's going to be looping through constantly, is that going to be... This is sanitation inputs, right? Like, because this one effectively loops 12 times, then leaves. So if I declare a temporary variable here, will that get deleted when it comes through again? Because if it does, then that's not great. Okay, so if key is pressed... Okay, so if, okay, so also... Okay, so if, key pressed V key, any key. Okay, if... Okay, now we gotta do this. If key pressed is not the escape key, because what we're going to do here is we're going to put a thing right here. Key pressed is escape, then immediately stop, do not pass go, set P to 0, key assign 0. There you go. So if the escape key is pressed, just set P to 0, set P to 0, key assign goes to 0, and just for funsies also, temp key up and temp key down also go to 0. So there you go. That'll reset everything that's going on. If you mess up on your inputs, then as long as they haven't been fully assigned, you don't have to worry about it. And that'll be useful in case somebody doesn't want to reassign everything. Like if you just want to swap like who's player 1, player 2, instead of having to swap players 3 and 4, that could be a thing. I don't know who would do that, but it's technically functional that way. This won't change the currently assigned things, but it will stop it from doing the whole thing if you don't want to do that. All right, and then keyboard assign goes here. So for loop, if key and escape, if any key has been pressed and it wasn't the escape key, then assign variable keyboard assign equal to 1, and let's go temp key down is equal to how do I get that down? It wasn't I was doing it in the test object, right? In the utility. I did it here. Okay, keyboard check. Yeah, there it is. In Smash Control, key down. There it is. Function call keyboard check. That was it. Okay, so function call. Keyboard check. Is that right? I think it is. In Master Controls, key down. Yeah. Let's call it temp variable. Okay, keyboard check. I need to find the key. Keyboard check direct. That's not what I want. Okay, let's go back to the test room, because I don't want to deal with this in the main thing just right now. So let's see if this works. Oh, that's right. I'm just going to do this. Disable those two for the time being. Because that one's calling a key, but I don't remember if that works for... Right, it was keyboard input. Keyboard input is the one that had the thing. Right. Keyboard input is just keyboard underscore key is the value. Because that's a variable. Okay, so keyboard assign 1, and then... Okay, so then... How do I do the second bit? Oh, boy. Okay, so, keyboard key has been pressed. If keyboard key press is not via escape. Okay, that's good. So actually, in that case, what I guess I should do is do a thing right here, right? If keyboard assigned is equal to 1, so keyboard assigned is equal to 1, then that means, okay, so keyboard assigned is equal to 0, then you do keyboard assigned to blah, if it's this, then this. Okay, so I don't need to do the temp up in that case. I only need the temp down. Is that the right one? God, I just don't... There we go. Okay, temp key down, and then this one is input P. Assign. Because everything is basically running off if the input is equal to -1 or not. So if input is -1, then you go there, and then if yeah, basically like that, right? I can also get rid of temp key up here. Yeah, you have less than player count, does this whole thing. If E is not equal to -1, this was 1. Okay, yeah, okay, good. Okay, so this one, if keyboard assign is currently equal to 0, keyboard assign gets set to 1, and temp key down gets added to the keyboard key. And, or rather, yeah, temp key down gets the keyboard key value. Then if... And I want keyboard pressed, because that's only first time it gets pressed. Then, if keyboard assign is equal to 1, first off... set another one here. Wait, no, I don't want that one. I want it to go here, actually. There. I don't want it here because that's too far down the line, because it will keep assigning keyboard there, but this one will be perfect because that's as soon as the thing is set to 0. Or set to 99. Alright, so these ones are going to be... okay. Key down P. Key down P. What's the letter we're using for this one? Is it P? Yeah, key down PP. Is equal to temp. Key down. And key up. P is equal to keyboard key, excuse me. Okay, should do it. So if any key is pressed and that key is not escape, if keyboard assigned is equal to 1, which it won't be by default, then okay, if keyboard assigned is equal to 0, which it is by default, keyboard assigned gets set to 1, and then you push your whatever key is currently held down to activate this gets assigned to the temporary down key. Loop back through. It'll give you a message here. Press the up key for player whatever. Which I should probably move that down slightly. Alright, so then, looping back around, if the escape key is not pressed, Keyboard assign is equal to 1. Set key down P to temp key down. And set key up P to the currently pressed key. At which point input P is set to 99 and all that jazz. Good. Alright, so let's run this thing real quick. And we're going to put in... keyboard input, keyboard key. Okay, I don't need this one. I don't need these ones, but I could use player 1 up key. Rather, down key. P1 down check. So 2, so let's go 250, 300. Okay, so that should work. So by default, the current input is, you know, whatever. Up is currently pressed, which is fine. Down is currently pressed, which is fine. All right, now we're going to change these. Oh, right, it's K. Awkward, that did the wrong button, and also didn't work properly. So, up key is K, which is 75. It's not assigning it properly. I probably should actually change that. So it's not K either. So you know what? Let me do the if key pressed. Let me see the I just add a new variable right here. We'll call that the keybind keys. Right, it's gonna go just so I can, like, change that as needed. Just to make it a little bit easier for myself. You have the key press, keybind key, and... if the key pressed is also not... keybind key. There. Alright, let's see what I can do now. Because I'm thinking it looks like part of it is still not quite registering right. So K is pressed. It's up. It didn't do down. It's not taking the down input correctly. I see. It's because 0 is also being registered, isn't it? This might actually be the best place for a switch. So, let me go do this. Because here's why. If I do switch... Let's just see if this works. I'm just gonna... instead of doing all this, so I want to go with VK any key. That basically is if any key is being pressed. In the case that it's 0, empty, nothing happens. In the case that it's what is it? VK escape? Yeah. In case it's VK escape, nothing happens. If the case 9 key, nothing happens. And in all other cases, which is the default case, we can copy this in, put it right there. So in the case that the any key button is pressed, or rather in the case any key is pressed, if it's 0, nothing happens. If it's escape, nothing happens. If it's keybind key, nothing happens. Probably shouldn't do this. If key press is not because the problem with this is that this breaks. I don't want it to break. Because if I break it out of the loop, this entire thing with the gamepad doesn't work anymore. So I can get rid of this. So if key press is not equal to 0, which is default, off, no buttons are pressed, take the value of whatever key is being pressed, run it through this. Let's try it. Okay, so press K. Okay. That's really not working the way I want it to. So why? Wait, it's setting the up key to 75. It's setting the up key to K for some reason. Are they not breaking? Should be breaking. Huh. Keyboard assigned to key. What is it? I think there's like a key, no key as well. Yeah, vkey underscore no key. vk underscore no key. I doubt this will change it, but it's worth trying. Yeah, no, still isn't working. It still is, for some reason, recording 0 as the first input, K as the second input. And immediately swapping over. So, if the key pressed is not no key, okay, I think that should be V key any key. I think that should be, right, it should be keyboard underscore key. Duh. So keyboard underscore key, if it's equal to escape, then break. If it's equal to the keyboard key, break. If it's equal to not either of those, or 0, there you go. Down. Huh. Okay, so it's not that. Escape breaks it. Perfect. Up. Okay, so it's still assigning 0... down. Oh, of course. Duh. Duh. Okay, so this part works. This part doesn't. Does it? Okay, so this part works. Anyway, I'm going to just disable these two for a second here. Hold on a second. I think I'm close. Okay, so when it goes through here, it does this. So keyboard assign, if keyboard assign is equal to 0, which it currently is, it sets keyboard assign to 1, and then temp key down is set to whatever the currently pressed key is. That, because it is working somehow, because temp key, the key is being assigned properly, but key up is not being assigned. It might not be breaking out of the loop properly, and that's why. No, it's not. It's not doing it. What? Press A or down to assign player 1. Press down. Press A or down to assign player 2. I'm going to make that, O. Why is it assigning it to the up key? That is the up key. That is the up key, so why is it assigning it to... Why is it the up key that's being assigned, though? What? That's weird. That's weird to me. For some reason, the up key is getting assigned here, which means this is the part that's triggering, not this one, even though keyboard assigned should be 0. Keynote key, keyboard key. What is this? Okay, I'm going to set a breakpoint here. We're going to run this in debug mode. Okay, key is pressed, or K is pressed. So now we get to look at... I'm just going to take this off the screen for a second here. Now we get to look at this line by line. So keyboard key is currently set to 0, which it shouldn't be. Switch. Ace escape. Keybind key 75. Keyword sign equals 1. Keyboard assign equals 0. So keyboard assign is set to 1. Temp key is set to keyboard key, which is 0, which isn't correct. No, that is correct. So now it's going to loop around until... Okay. So now it hits this, it just keeps looping around. It's basically just going to keep looping around until I hit a button. Ah, I see. Press up key for player 1. Okay, so keyboard key has been pressed. The value is 0 for some reason. Hold on, I'm just gonna move that breakpoint. Just run it again. Okay, so K. Okay, so this is one of those issues where I've had this issue before, like when I was running with the controller stuff before, where it would work, but only in debug mode, because I think the game was stepping through the thing so slow that it was actually able to trigger things properly. But for whatever reason, this way, it doesn't like to do that in the normal game running speed. Maybe I should do this backwards. Yeah, let's do this backwards. Okay, this is still going to stay here because I need to, like, there's no reason to do anything if the keyboard isn't, like, being pressed. Like, that is completely pointless to do anything if the keyboard isn't being touched. Okay, so let's go, temp key down. There we go. Now, in the case temp key down, in the case that it's equal to VK escape, I should probably set that to -1 because that's actually a good neutral value instead of this. That might be part of the problem, honestly. Okay, so in the case of escape, if it's the keybind key, same thing. Now, in all other cases, since this isn't going to be 0, or rather, you know what? I might as well throw in an extra case there. The case it's equal to 0 goes to -1. In all other cases, in that case, yeah. So when you push a key, when you actually push a key, as long as it's not 0, temp key down will be recorded. Now, in the case temp key down is equal to VK escape, temp key down goes to -1. In the case it's the keybind key, which is K, goes to -1. In the case it's 0, which is, should be actually VK no key, temp key down goes to -1. In all other cases, if keyboard assign is equal to 0, keyboard assign gets set to 1. Yeah, might as well put the break there. That'll break me out of, I'm pretty sure this switch. If keyboard assign is equal to 1, then set key down is equal to the temp key down. Key up is equal to the keyboard key currently pressed. And input, this gets set to -1. And then break. Let's try that. Okay, so I push down. Up and down have both been set. Good, we're making progress. Progress is being made here. That's the important thing. I'm actually going to do a double break here because I wonder if that will work. I probably don't want to do double break on that. This one, at least. Double break on the other one's probably fine. Let's see. No. Doesn't do anything. Okay. So here's the problem. The problem is that... Oh, wait, duh, I'm an idiot. It's not setting both of them to that. I'm doing like, okay, I set to S. Okay, no, it is actually setting both of them to it. Okay, I need to check that. I thought it was just like, of course it's setting it to that. Down is 40, up is 38 to begin with, or whatever. So of course it's not going to change it, but no, it actually is setting both of them to the same thing. So what it appears is going on is, I'm pretty sure, I just had a really dumb idea. Okay, so instead of doing this, I don't think this should be here. I do not think this should be here. Temp down should not be keyboard key, because I don't want temp key down to set every single time. Yeah. This shouldn't be here. That shouldn't be there. So actually, I was sort of right the first time. Okay, so keyboard key is equal to temp, or rather, it should be temp down. There we go. So that's the thing. I think that was the big problem, because it was looping through here and it was triggering this again because temp key down was basically, this for loop was causing this thing to trigger multiple times when it shouldn't have. So doing this means it will no longer trigger if the temp key down button is pressed again. Okay, there you go. So temp key down is now keyboard key. Again, set input. Okay, that should work. Let's try this. Alright, so press K. I'm gonna press S and W. Okay, I think I set temp... It looks like I set to -1 too early by accident. So... That's weird. I did send it to -1 by accident. Okay, let me try turning that one off there. Try putting that there instead. Okay, press K. I'm gonna press W for down, or S for down, and W for up. And then down, up. Okay, so player 1 is controlling down, should be 83. Perfect. Up is 87. Perfect! All right, we got it. We got it. Let's see if this works. Okay, so that's K. I'm going to assign this to the controller. And we're going to do us. There we go. Yep, S and up. Good, perfect. So player 2 is now controlling with W and S. All right, now let's go back here. We're going to do, player 1 is going to be W and S, and player 2 is going to be down and up. Yeah, boy! Custom controls, baby! So, well, this is good and all for, like, for keyboard. And also just good in general. Doing something like that for controller is gonna be a whole other can of worms. So, I was showing off the controller mapping stuff earlier, like over here. Like, that's the PS5 controller mapping, right? I can also, if I want to, pull out the controller mapping for... can I pull out the controller mapping for the Xbox, actually? Hold on a second. Let's see here. I want to... Am I currently using slot 4 or 0? Okay, perfect. So, here's the thing, right? Oops. Right. Also, it should... Where is mapping? Where did I put the mapping? Get mapping. There it is, yeah. Okay. So here's the trick with this. Ironically, Xbox controllers are much harder to work with in this context now. Because you see right here, right? Oops, right, you can't actually see. I turned the game capture off. Anyway, you see this over here? Where it says mapping, no mapping? Xbox controllers don't take mapping inputs like normal things do. I could set a custom map, but I'd have to like fill out the whole thing manually. Also, I don't have a GUID. I just straight up do not have a GUID I can use. I don't know why. It's weird that I don't have that information, period, for an Xbox controller. But them's the breaks. So... my thought was, for stuff like a PS5 controller, I could take the mapping that I already have created, and then I could have the player go like, okay, which button, assign which button you want to be down. And if they press X button, or the cross on the PlayStation 5 controller, it would swap the binding around on that map. So I could have just like a string, and I could do like a little bit of scripting stuff with it that would just swap binding locations there. But that clearly doesn't work here, since I can't adjust the binding for... I can't adjust the binding map for the Xbox controller in the same way. Which means I would have to have two setups. One for X input, one for direct input. Which means I've got to do it the hard way, which is... map every single button on this fucking controller to a variable and say, which one of these do you want to be the input? Controller support sucks. It really does. Like, ignoring the part where every controller is created differently, so they all have different weird fucking numbering systems. Just like... here's another example. GameMaker does not actually have any button function. There's the any key function, which is, you know, just tells you which key on the keyboard is being pressed from 1 to 200 or whatever. But for gamepads, if you want to figure out which button is being pressed, you have to run a check for every single button on the controller that runs an if statement that goes, if this button is being pressed, then display the number. That's what you have to do. It's terrible. It's just terrible. I'm gonna ask somebody how they did the binding. I'm just gonna shoot a message right now. Okay, yeah. That is the way to do it. Just do that, huh? Ugh. Ugh. That is not appealing to me in the least. Okay, so I can appreciate the, like, quick and dirty, you know, just get it done, get it working style of programming stuff, but I very much prefer the elegant solution that requires minimal changes to get something working properly. And unfortunately, it seems like everything to do with controllers requires you to brute force and manually input every single thing to get it to work. Which sucks. That sucks. Man, that sucks. Alright, well. I don't even know how I do that. That is something I would just plug away at over the course of, like, 2 weeks in my off time. Because that is the most time-consuming, tedious garbage I could think of. Especially since I'd want to theoretically be able to assign multiple buttons. Like, I'd have to assign multiple buttons to this thing, theoretically. And all that would have to come after I do some kind of GUI facelift, just so I can actually stand to look at this game for more than 10 minutes at a time. Alright, so, I guess that's that. That's probably that for today. Hey, I got some good work in there, though. I got some good work in there. I can now press the K button to assign keyboard inputs or controller input to players. And look at this. This is a controller. Up and down works, D-pad works, left vertical works. I can do this with multiple controllers. I can do this with multiple players. I can do keyboard inputs. Ah, look at this. It's lovely. It's lovely. Look at this. How about that, huh? Haha. Oh yeah, I gotta fix collision at some point too. Alright. Nope, I pushed the wrong button. I was trying to move the left one, but I moved the right one by accident, because they're in the wrong hands. This is a good challenge mode. if you wanna have a fun challenge, play this game and then try and keep the ball from scoring. Keep the ball from scoring. Put your left hand controlling the right side and your right hand controlling the left side, and just see how that works. Like, maybe I should do that as a game mode. Just like W and S controls player 2, up and down controls player 1. Try and keep the ball from scoring for as long as possible. I could probably do that right now, in fact. Hold on a second, let me see something here. Still got my... I'm pretty sure I saw the picture of BlockBall, right? I don't know where it is. Where is it? Is it in our pictures? No, is it in our documents? Is it in here? Maybe I have it saved in Photoshop. No. No, I don't. All right. Well, if I go to the itch page, I know for a fact they're there. So let's go to... Stop opening honey. I need to get rid of that thing. I never use it. Okay, let's go here. BlockBall. I can get the image. This stupid little image I made in... It's not even really... It's not even really mirrorable. So let me just do... Let me just... Just open up a new thing. 500 by 500. There. Okay, so we're going to take BlockBall. I'm going to see here. First, center it nice like that. I don't actually know how you mirror things. Also, let me, here, let me capture this. Why not? Here. Ta-da! Photoshop. Alright, so how do I actually mirror something around an axis? Right, so I need to cut out, so I guess rasterize type first. Then cut out everything on this side. Actually, probably layer via cut. There you go. So take this. I guess the easy way to do it would be duplicate width -100. BlockBall. Or if we take this one, let's see, duplicate layer, -100. Okay, I like that one actually. So instead of BlockBall, it's either Okay, hold on. Actually, you know what? Can't get rid of all this. Hold on. I gotta do it in Kremlin. Because that's the text I'm actually using. So let's see. BlockBall. There we go. That's the text I use for this stuff. Shrink it a little bit so it fits easily. There we go. Alright, so let's see here. Rasterize type. Layer via cut. Duplicate. Duplicate. There we go. Let's merge those. Merge those layers. So what is stronger? BlockBall or LabXBall? I'm thinking LabXBall, honestly. Also, I'm gonna save these because this is I like this thing. Let's save that as a PNG. I'll just there we go. I'm thinking LabXBall though is what I want to go with on this one. So let's take that out here. We're gonna save that as its own PNG. But you know, let me see this whole thing. Just for funsies. I don't have to do that again. There we go. All right, so we're gonna import a new sprite, I think. Let's create sprite. It's been a minute since I've done this. Import. Import image with transparency. Color removal tools. That's weird. Wait, did I not export that with transparency? That's fucking stupid. Oh god, I didn't. Whoops. Haha. Awkward. Okay, yeah, that was my mistake. I forgot to delete the background on this. That was my mistake. Whoops. All right, let's try that again. Import. There we go. Much better. Alright, so let's see. Edit the image. You know, this is probably fine, actually. So, let's go back to the main menu now. I don't need to actually open that room up. Alright, so going back to the main menu, I want to go to... objects. Main menu master. Let's see. So on create, I want to run user event 0, which is setting up the actual things. No, this is reading the... Right, this is getting the settings set up. I'm not sure where to put it now is the question. You know what? Better idea. Better idea. Better idea. Step event. How do I do this? If, let's see. If, how about if key pressed, let's call it key pressed. How about, this is going to be, this is a secret only known to you and me. Let's do control. Wait, is that, I don't know if it's left control. No, I can do a better one. How about delete? If you press delete, go to room, and let's make a new room here real quick. It's been a minute. Actually, you know what? Just copy game over. Oh wait, no, create child room. Yeah. Room game. Lab X ball. There it is. So, the deal with the child room is this is effectively the same room as the regular game room. It has all the same variables, it has all the same instances, it has everything, blah, blah, blah. Everything's the same, effectively. The difference is that I can change this one, and it inherits settings from the main game room. So if I do anything with the main game room, it'll also be downloaded into this one as a result. With the exception of things I specifically set to not be the case. I'm not entirely sure how that works with rooms, though. And also the only object in here is this one. So one thing I could do here is, I could run a small setup, like, script almost. It's not really a script, it's more of like a just little like, it's basically a script. Can I run a script? Yeah, I don't know how scripts work still. Okay, so the master game will spawn everything in. So let's just do something real quick here. Okay, so let me just actually, I don't really need to do anything special in here. What I would do is draw a GUI. Maybe. Okay, so let's do this in that case. You know, let's just do this for funsies. If variable, if current room the current room, call it room. If room is equal to room game BlockBall, right, this is where I want to put that script. Or not script. This is where I put the sprite. Can I just like dump the sprite in the background? I should be able to, right? No, I can't. Oh, asset layer. Yeah, you know what? Fine. Do it. Create a new asset layer. Is that equal? It's hard to tell. Oh god, the thing isn't equal to begin with. That's fine. That's fine. There you go. You got BlockBall off center, the way it was intended. God damn it. Okay, if BlockBall is set to that, then set the following variables. We're going to set key. Okay, so input P. Input P0 and input P1 are both set to 99. Key down P1, and then key up. Zero and 1. This one's going to be key down. Player 1 is going to be set to VK down. Up for 0 is going to be set to VK up. Key down is going to be set to ORD S. This one's going to be set to ORD W. All right. Excellent. So we've done this. We create a secret, super secret game hidden in there. Oh yeah, I can also get rid of this stuff. Actually, I can just get rid of that one. It gets rid of all of them, right? Yeah. Good. Perfect. Excellent. Molto bene. All right, so there you go. That's it. That's all I had to do. See if that works. Alright, so press delete. We're in Lab Box. Curious. Also, that really shouldn't be on top of everything like that, come to think of it. So, probably put that there. Why is it all black like that? Weird. Why is it doing that? Might be because those are inherited or something. Okay, it's not assigning the things... Oh, right, of course, because it's only running on create event. And the create event is in the first room. Right. Duh. Of course! Right, I forgot it was persistent. Ahaha. Awkward. In that case, those can go in here. Was user event 2? Was user event 2 anything? No. No, it wasn't. This was, in fact, absolutely nothing. In that case, I got something better to put in user event 2 now. There we go. Boop. Perfect. Try and not score on yourself. Yes. Good. We got it. And I've got to figure out why Lab Ball is all the way up there on the background. That's very annoying, actually. Okay, so yeah, I don't know why. I don't understand. Yeah, revert that. I just don't understand why it's doing this. I can do this. No, it's still not working. I do not understand. Eh, fuck it, it works. That's all that counts. Alright, there you go. Got a new game loaded in there. Yeah! It's not a very good one, granted, but it's there. Alright, so that kind of just... That's exactly kind of what I mean, though. Like, I've done I've done all this work to get everything set up nice and like elegantly so I can just do these things and just immediately just dump in whatever I want without having to do any work. Like, there it is. It's right there. I done it. I did it. It's done. It's set. So I am going to leave that there for today. Next time, I'm going to... I think it's time I finally figure out how to do resolution and such. Because I need to be able to scale this game around. It's currently just sitting at a 1920 by 1080 window 100% of the time, which... It's not even a 1920 by 1080p window, honestly. That's the right resolution, I guess, but it's not actually doing that. I'll have to figure that out. That's something for next week, though. So I'm gonna start taking a look into resolution options and whatnot and see what I can figure out. And also, I probably should try and figure out what the fuck is going on with surfaces, because I still have not been able to get that to function. Yeah, got some work done today. And I'm glad I got everything sorted out over the week, because that was a lot of nonsense that really did not need to be shown off. And binding is going to be even worse. Ugh. Alright, anyway. Thanks for stopping by, as always. I'll be back with more of this next week, as I was saying. Tomorrow is Sunday, so I'll be playing Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous. Should be finishing off Act 4, probably. Maybe finishing Act 4? I'll get close to the end of Act 4 at least. I don't know like if I'll be able to finish it right out because of how time-consuming everything is in that game. But, yeah. That's that. As always, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for checking out this little adventure into game design with me. Enjoy the rest of your day, night, evenings, what have you. I'll have to also figure out how to do, like, proper parenting and child stuff for rooms. Like, I know how to do with objects. As an example, the example they were giving on a website was, when you parent stuff, you would parent, like, the paddle object, and you would have the invisible, like, object paddle, which controls most of the code for what's going on with both of the controllers, or both the paddles. And then you would have, like, paddle player 1, paddle player 2 as their own separate objects. They're children of the original paddle object. And with that, you could go like, okay, paddle object 1 has this like color to it, so it looks yellow, and the other one is blue, and you would get the sprites changed based on that information and all that sort of stuff. Like, you could theoretically do it with a lot of stuff in object paddle by itself, but it might be just easier just to children. Like, honestly, the selector thing, that basically is the same deal. Like, the selector would be the same thing. I could set up everything there as a child and just have the main object selector and then a child for each menu, but I decided to do it all as a singular object to cut down on the clutter because it's way easier. And also, I was basically doing that before by just copying the code over across each one. Alright, anyway, that's where we're leaving that. Enjoy the rest of your day, evening, night, what have you. Once again, music is being provided by StreamBeats. That was the ambient playlist you were listening to. And let's see here. I think, yeah, let's go raid Fully Trained Noob. He's currently playing a bunch of RimWorld with super mods. So go say hi to him. I'll put out this version of the game shortly on itch.io. See ya.